Hi, I'm Patty Kienle, and I am happy to be talking with you today about staying nimble in healthcare, and in particularly in pharmacy circles. I'm Director of Accreditation and Medication Safety for Cardinal Health Innovative Delivery Solutions, but I started out my career for the first 25 years or so as a hospital pharmacy director in northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm a graduate of the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy and was very active in AIDA chapter. And I'm happy to be associated with Wilkes University's Nesbitt School of Pharmacy in Alpha Phi Alumni chapter. I was also on Grand Council for a number of years, including serving as Grand President. Well, I want to talk to you today about leadership. And it's kind of an interesting process because one of the keys to leadership is working with great people and for great people. And sometimes you'll get the opportunity to work with some giants in pharmacy. And I love this picture because the lady in the light colored blouse there sitting down was my very first pharmacy boss. She was someone who was director of pharmacy at Monmouth Medical Center in Long Branch, New Jersey, near where I grew up, and she served as ASHP's very first vice president. She was light years ahead of most others in community hospital practice, and she gently guided staff, whether they were seasoned folks or students or new practitioners in the world of hospital pharmacy. That's the kind of person you want to work for if you can, particularly early in your career. But a lot of times you don't have a choice like that. But I do want to encourage you to don't settle for mediocrity. You don't want to be, I hate to hear people say they don't like what they're doing or it's a drudge to go to work because there's so many opportunities in pharmacy. I'll be the first one to admit that there aren't as many now as there were when I was first in practice, but it's certainly something that you need to find your niche and find something that you really enjoy, because that really makes not only a leader in our profession, but also happy people and good patients and good outcomes for patients as well. We need to see how we fit in the big picture. So my message to you is to be nimble. And I have 3 book suggestions for you. They're all nonfiction, and maybe you've run across them, but likely you have not. But I'd like you to think about using these to guide you in your journey that makes you a better pharmacist, brings more information into your realm of being, but it also keeps you nimble in our practice. The first book I want to suggest is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. Have you heard of HeLa cells? I bet you have. HeLa is Henrietta Lacks, who was a poor African-American woman farmer whose cells were taken without her knowledge in 1951. The cell cultures that were developed here have become one of medicine's most valuable tools. But the process and the resulting improvements in therapy were never properly explained to her or to her family. So how many times do we hear our own patients misinterpret the complexities of what happens to them during encounters? The bedrock of what we do needs to be promoting an ethical approach to allow discoveries to bloom. When this occurred in 1951, no one faced these possibilities. Ethics, as we know it now in medicine, was unknown at that point. The situation like this, and others very much like it, have brought us to the point where human experiments aren't conducted without appropriate consent. And clearly that's the way it should be. So how does this keep us nimble? It weaves ethical issues, patient education, and advancing medical practice in our realm. Collegiates, ask if you can attend an institutional review board meeting, an ethics committee meeting, or any of the quality activities while you're on rotations in pharmacies. And alumni, please include students and new practitioners when you can in those type of activities. Well, my second suggestion is more on the science end, and it's Flu by Gina Colada. We know so much about infectious diseases, but so little. 100 years ago was the height of the worldwide influenza epidemic. It killed at least 40 million people in a few months. Look at the list of new agents that are approved by the FDA each year. Most of them are biologics, and many of them are intended to treat just a single condition. We still struggle with curing bacterial and viral diseases, and you know the resistance pattern in your own health systems are frightening. All of us in pharmacy knows the mystery that often surrounds the treatment of patients. What's going to work best and why? How can effective protocols be developed to better treat our vulnerable patients? So this balance of science and safety shines in this story, and it isn't much different from today's attempts to cure diseases. How does this keep us nimble? We certainly know a lot more than we did about viruses 100 years ago, but there's still plenty of unsolved medication mysteries. Consider doing research, publishing, working with interprofessional teams, and encourage and support those who work with you to do so as well. Well, the third book that I have as a suggestion to do is Radium Girls by Kate Moore. In the early 1900s, an industry popped up that revolutionized the existing method of watchmaking. Young women were hired for their precision to paint the luminescent dials of watches so those timepieces could be seen in the dark. With what? Radium. It was the wonder drug of 1915, marketed in tonic water and cosmetics as the cure for all sorts of conditions. Thousands of workers were recklessly exposed to it, despite some scientists and managers knowing there was some risk. It wasn't until the side effects began to emerge among many workers that patterns were realized. How does this keep us nimble? I certainly see this as a telling story when we deal with hazardous drugs. We know their risks, and when we're aware of the protection to take, it's reasonable to take the most logical path. So, what's the key message in books about ethics and viral diseases and risk? Be nimble. Use our solid science education, management skills, integration in other medical activities, and grit to move practice forward. All three books are stark representations of science melded with personal stories. Isn't that what leadership in our profession's all about? So how can we guide others to make great discoveries while promoting safety for our patients? So I have some tips for you about being nimble. First, find a mentor who can guide you in the direction you want to go. You might not know that direction all the time, but you'll know in your gut if it's right for you. Be ready to take on additional responsibilities. You don't always need to say yes, even if you have that option, but no is likely to set you back at least a few steps on the path to success. So recognize the balance that you need, but take some chances when you can. Learn what others are doing. ASHP, APHA, LKS, pharmacy, and other medical publications, current events. One idea can spark a whole new path. I hope to see every one of you publish, present, and lead practice. Travel when you can. Maybe it's local, maybe it's international, maybe it's travel through reading. It's not just journals, today's internet news, or whatever you catch on TV. Exchange visits with other local health systems. Go visit a pharmacy that you've never seen. Nuclear, home care, specialty. There's all sorts of opportunities out there. But read for pleasure, but also read for substance. Be active in pharmacy organizations. Tap one other person. Maybe it's someone you know. Maybe it's someone who's a new friend of you. You can double the involvement in pharmacy with our LKS folks by tapping one more person to get involved and influence practice. Partner in your activities in health systems, golf tournaments, auxiliary functions, fundraising. All of those things raise your presence in the community and are quite important to keeping us aware of what's going on and to move that practice forward. And most of all, be there for the people who need you. Realize that our pharmacy license is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. Part of the oath of the pharmacist says, I will consider the welfare of humanity and relief of suffering my primary concerns. I will embrace and advocate change that improves patient care. So when Hagar the Horrible says, why me? The answer is, why not? You can do those things, you can be nimble, and you can make those changes in practice. I hope that gives you a few ideas, and I'd love to see all of you in national meetings, in local meetings, and in any of our activities.